Welcome to our first episode of our What's Up With That
What's up with that
podcast. Tonight's topic is quarter projects. We've had a lot of parent inquiries about what's up with that? What's going on in the Arctic Zone? Can you give us more information about that? So we thought we'd talk through what a quarter project looks like in the Arctic Zone.
Whether at school on their Chromebook or iPad or at home, students will usually start on the Eau Claire School District Start page, which has a variety of apps. The main one they'll go to is Canvas and log in with their school ID and password. This gets them to our modules, especially for quarter projects. They'll access the launch cycle and what they go through. When they log in, they'll see a course called Chill Time. This is my login, so you see many of them. But when they click on Chill Time, it'll take them to like I said, the modules here, and you can see them walking through launch.
This quarter's quarter project is our game night challenge. The driving question for this project is, how can I design a game that depicts a struggle in our nation right now? So you're looking at the document that will guide students through the launch cycle process. And the first phase within that process is the L phase, the look, listen, and learn phase.
And look, listen, and learn. They just start to explore the topic, explore the theme, explore the driving question. For game night, we had a local expert to talk about game design and what he looks for when him and his friends play games, from the theme to, are the directions simple and easy? What's the game mechanisms? Do you roll a dice, pick a card, game pieces, how many people can play, and stuff like that. We also start to brainstorm a topic, and we look at the project design packet. Once they've brainstormed and narrowed down to a topic, and if they're going to be working with somebody, then they write up a project rationale as to why did they choose that topic, what do they want to learn about that topic, what's their final product going to be, and who are they going to launch that final project to. Then they start to look at our power standards. That's a list of standards related to topics like ELA, science, social studies, technology, math practices. And they identify for an individual written document, which you'll learn more about later, and their team product, which in our case was their game. What power standards do they need to become experts in order for it to help drive their projects? And then essential skills, they'll identify some things that they want to work on individually and as a group, like organization, collaboration, cooperation, time management, things like that. Eventually, they will discuss that page one of the packet with an advisor, have an advisor meeting, and submit a copy of that page one to Canvas in order to move on to Ask Lots of Questions.
In the Ask Lots of Questions phase, it sounds exactly like it sounds. They're just going to be, as I call it, word vomiting all of their questions about their topic and their driving question. So questions might relate to their specific topic. We've a few topic examples include homelessness, racism, deforestation, things like that. But then also they might be asking questions related to game design specifically, because that's their challenge. A tip we always offer is using the who, what, why, where, when, how stems to guide those questions. And then down below on that page 2 of the design packet, they start doing a little preliminary research where they start exploring potential sources for their research later on. The purpose of this is so that once they do get to their U phase, they can just dig into the research. So here we're looking for specific source examples, specific websites, specific people, specific books. One piece I did skip over is the roles and responsibilities piece. At the start of almost every single phase, that is a conversation that should be happening within groups. Who's going to do what? What role is every single person going to play to help our group be successful? And then at the end of this phase, they submit that page 2 to Canvas.
Next, we move on to understand the problem or process. This is where we really dig into the learning. We learn around those research questions, power standard modules, and they start by doing a little backwards design. On page 3 of the project design packet, they look at what's their final product going to be, so their game. What things do they need to learn about? So maybe the theme that they chose, like homelessness, racism, deforestation. What power standard modules do they need to become experts on? So maybe if it's deforestation, they need to talk about ecosystems, or things like that. And then maybe what's going to make their project successful, like in this case, like game design. And then they make a step-by-step plan for how they're going to meet each of those. Also in Understand, they walk through Power Standards modules in Canvas. I will show you those in just a second. They narrow down their research questions. They again determine roles and responsibilities, who's going to research what. They do individual research and take quality research notes and discuss those notes with an advisor. They complete a bibliography of their sources that they found. And then they come back together and share all their research notes, compile a group bibliography, and upload all evidence to Google Drive. Those Power Standards modules are key to the success in the Understand phase. What they will do is in Canvas, they will go to their AZ Science course, which has a picture that says Power Standards. In that Power Standards course will be all the science and social studies power standards and modules related to them. So if they're doing that deforestation topic and they have to learn more about ecosystems, that's Science Power Standard number 8. If they click on that, it'll bring them to that power standard, and then they will get a guide sheet from us as well. And you can see that in that power standard, they'll focus on a kind of a driving question there. They'll explore some basic knowledge in a choice activity of either watching a couple videos, reading a few articles or websites, and then kind of submitting a paragraph response as to what they learned. They'll complete an activity or two, and they'll have some choice there depending on the module. And then they'll complete a checkpoint and discuss it with us to see where their mastery level is at that point. And then finally, this might be the key. They participate in an online discussion post where they apply this new knowledge about this power standard to their project. How are they going to use Power Standard Science 8 in their deforestation game? And we've really found that this is a huge step for them, taking new knowledge and then applying it to a project. Finally, at the end of the U phase, one of the most important things is the U phase reflection. We do reflecting a lot throughout the projects here in the Arctic Zone, and they will complete a Google form online where they will enter our email addresses, your email addresses, and theirs, and reflect on the power standards and their mastery level, and reflect on how their group is doing, how their game design is going. And when they hit submit, that gets emailed to everybody on that email list, and we can all have a discussion, whether it's you at home or us here at school, about how things are going. And finally, they submit their research notes to Canvas.
The end phase is where it starts to get fun. All the research has been completed. So the end phase is really a quick phase where it's just an opportunity to kind of hit the pause button and regroup as a group, make sure they're organized. They've got all of their learning accomplished, and how are they going to apply that learning to their final product. And so it's a planning phase, more brainstorming about how do we actually create this final product, who's going to do what, to make our group successful. Also within the end phase is deciding who's going to do which written documents for every quarter project. Every single student is individually responsible for completing a written document. You can see the 4 choices they have for our game night. An instruction manual, a sales pitch to a game company, an advertisement script and recording, and a how to play script and recording. So they get to select their option there. Again, check in with an advisor before they're ready to move on to the create. For their submission, they will submit a link to their Google Drive folder to show us that they're organized and ready to move forward.
Then we get to the create phase, and this is where they actually start creating their final written document, but also their final product, which in our case for this first quarter project is their game. Once they've designed the game, then they will work, like I said, on those individual written documents, do some editing with themselves, a peer, and an advisor. Their final submission to Canvas will be their final written document that they come up with, and then they will make sure that their game is ready to go for highlighting and revising that game or that product before we launch it.
And the highlighting and revise phase is incredibly important when we have a real live launch of the event. It's where they're going to be practicing their presentations. They're going to be having other peers actually play their game and offering critical feedback. They're going to have to go back and make adjustments to their product if need be. Make sure all of their evidence is uploaded to Drive and ready to go. and they submit that final link to their Drive folder at the end of this phase.
Okay, after students highlight and revise their product, and in our case here, the game, they have a few groups play it and test it out. It's time to launch, and the launch is launching it to an authentic audience to get public feedback. And our launch for this one is our game night coming up on Tuesday, October 30th. Students will share their game with community members, staff from North Star, parents and family and friends, and really get some authentic feedback on their game. From there, we roll into the evaluate phase. Not really part of the launch acronym, but very important to then look back at the past couple of months and how have things gone. They're going to write some thank you notes to any sources or people that helped them. They have a rubric that they will score themselves on related to the project. They'll complete an E-phase reflection, and that's another one of those Google forms that get emailed home to you and to us, so you can kind of have a discussion at home. Hey, how did that first quarter project go? And then they'll have an evaluation meeting where they sit down with an advisor and we walk through that rubric and see where we have agreements, discussions around disagreements of how they're assessing themselves. And then we look at the power standards and start to kind of track their mastery level around different power standards that they've been working on for the last couple months. Finally, they submit that final project rubric that's been discussed by both them and an advisor to Canvas, and the quarter project is complete.
So we just kind of recapped here what a quarter project looks like. We did want to just reiterate that the quarter projects are very teacher driven. There's a lot of student choice worked in throughout, but we set the deadlines, we set the challenge, the driving question in the beginning to help guide them through the process. The launch cycle is a process that they can choose to use on other projects, but it's not a requirement. We just find that with a middle school population, this is incredibly helpful for guiding a project process and giving them a foundation to start with. If you have suggestions or questions for future podcast episodes, please don't hesitate to email us. We're hoping to increase the level of understanding on your end about what's going on in here, because we know what's going on, but we know that there's a lot of people out there asking what's up with that. So thank you for tuning into our first episode of What's Up With That?
What's Up With That?
Podcast.